All right, so maybe I'll also use this presentation as a practice run, and then maybe do a better one next time because I have like thousands of photos, or maybe some of them that I'll present, maybe not even the best ones, but I'll need to sort through. And I also have like thousands of screenshots for these kind of demos, and then once you take 1,000 of them, now we have to go through them and pick pick what makes sense to show. But most of the pictures I'll show are taken with my SeeStars or Dwarf, and yeah, it was kind of challenge to organize this, whether I want to just talk about smart scopes, whether I want to talk about SeeStar, or try to compare them at each function or each functionality or whatnot. But we'll see how it goes. And so that on the screen is the Lagoon and Trifid Nebula with taken with the S30 about a year ago, it looks like. And Yeah, so just as an intro, thanks for Jeff for holding these sessions. I'm learning a lot, I appreciate the opportunity to present as well. And Kevin is my biggest cheerleader, always pumping me up every time with the crowd. So thanks. And yeah, all of the CAS SmartScope owners, because they kind of got me hooked. We have a lot of people who have SeeStars and all the other SmartScopes. So it was uh, exciting to learn from them as well. And yeah, if you guys who are present have questions, feel free to stop it. So it's not like me monotone droning and putting you to sleep. And if I say something obviously wrong, then feel free to jump in and correct me. I'd rather go on record, especially out in onto YouTube world with the correct information. So right, so we'll compare the SeeStar and DwarfLab. So we'll, I don't know, I guess uh, no endorsement implied. It's all in my opinions on which one is better or worse. Or yeah, also your mileage may vary. Some people enjoy one versus the other. So um, we'll see. So quick intro about me, and I also have like a little biography of my astronomy interests as well. So I went to school in Michigan and went to University of Michigan, Dearborn, and graduated from high school in 2000. That's when I went to college and I got a degree in computer science. And then I went back and got a degree in physics, but I haven't really used any of my physics knowledge for anything. So that muscle kind of atrophied. But I was always interested in astronomy, and one of my first telescopes, like serious telescopes that I could observe with, was I bought it off eBay when eBay was first beginning to like sell actual products, and I think some guy like imported 50 non-name brand telescopes from China, and it was seemed super affordable, so I bought it, and it was like my first scope. It's not the one that pictured, but it looked just like that. It was basically a Newtonian. I think it was 10-inch mirror, so it was pretty cool. But it was a bit of a hassle to learn, especially starting from nothing with that equatorial mount. It was a bit too much for me. And then shortly after that, I had to upgrade and buy my Meet LX90 because I needed electronics and buttons to push and that go to functionality. So, and then on my last semester in college, they just installed a new science building and they installed that 16-inch telescope there that's pictured. And I was lucky enough to use it for a semester, although I was in Dearborn and it's like 5 minutes outside of downtown Detroit, so horrible skies. So, yeah, but still, it was kind of good intro to electronic telescopes and imaging and whatnot. So, and then throughout my life, I was joining different clubs. So my first astronomy club was FAAC out in Michigan. It was Ford Amateur Astronomy Club. They held their meetings right next to my campus and Ford Community College. And from there, I moved to Colorado, and there I joined BASS, which is Boulder. Uh, Boulder Astronomy and Space Society. And there was also like Front Range Astro Club and Northern Colorado Astronomical Society. So I joined them just for like a mailing list so I can get notified for all of the um, events. And then finally, when I moved to Virginia here, I joined CAS, and I have to say, one of the best astronomy clubs I've been in. Super active, and we do sometimes 3 events per night. So this is uh, amazing. And one of the first events I went to was Ivy Creek, right after I joined CAS, and Dave Seppington had his SeeStar there on the ground, and I looked at it and I was floored on what it could do. So I had like basically that same night I went home and like impulse bought it. So, and that picture is me and on the aurora that we got to see here in Virginia. Three events in 1 year, so that was kind of amazing for astronomy and all of us. Anyway, so. Here's one of my smart scopes. It's a SeeStar S30. This photo taken just this Friday out at Woodridge Farm Brewery. Um, kind of ignore that power cable if it triggers anyone kind of sticking out that way. But so that scope set up in equatorial mode. It's actually sitting on a tripod from S50, SeeStar S50. It has a little head for leveling, and it has a little equatorial wedge for polar alignment skywatcher. And we can talk about all of that later. And then this is the image I took with it. And depending on your darkness of monitor, it should look like a mosaic of Veil Nebula. So those 30-second frames taken for about an hour and a half, and all processing done right there in the SeeStar app out in the field at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm amazed at what these smart telescopes can do. And I didn't really have a very good agenda for presentation, but I just kind of threw that as a quick outline. But that image right there is their little family portrait of smart telescopes that I've taken. I took that image about a year ago, and that was my SeeStars and Dwarf 2 that now our club owns. And I think Dwarf was either mine or maybe I borrowed it from Ken, which is another great smart telescope resource. But you can see the relative sizes of them. They're sitting there on the cutting mat with the inch markings. And you can also see the slightly different form factors where in SeeStars you see this arm flips out, and in Dwarfs it's like a little head with two cameras. And Dwarf came out with Dwarf Mini, which they kind of copied the form factor of the SeeStar form factor, where an arm kind of flips out with the optics. Um, let's see. So yes, S50 is the one that only has one sensor, and all of the other ones, they have second wide field sensor, which helps with sometimes alignment or looking for finding the moon, or finding the sun. So let's see what are smart telescopes, and that a screenshot from the AstroStar. I think it's High Point Scientific, but it looks like it's a whole new category that deserves its own category on the store as well. So obviously all of the telescopes have advantages, disadvantages, and they grouped smart scopes as its own unique category now because it's its own beast. There's another image of mine, Eagle Nebula, almost over 3 hours exposure on S50. It's a nice target to shoot, of course. So smart telescopes, so they're sort of on the umbrella of this broader electronically assisted astronomy. So it's using electronic devices, cameras, computers to observe the skies. There's always like these two camps where you can do astronomy manually, all analog observing, or you can do electronics and computers. And these smart scopes belong very far into the electronically assisted astronomy because you need your smart device. You control Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. It's all in one, everything, optics, camera tracking, battery storage, auto alignment, auto tracking, live stack, and everything is in one package. Quote unquote smart. And you can obviously also use it not only for astrophotography. So a lot of these offer daytime use for things as well. And another image of mine would be uh, Forsett Nebula. So that's kind of a good example of how tough of a target it is to shoot with the traditional setup and how kind of easy and effortless it would be with the smart telescope where you can just kind of point and forget it and it just finds it for you and starts taking pictures, which was a kind of big draw for me for all of these smart telescopes and electronic assisted stuff. So I tried to find a good picture of like a traditional astrophotography setup, especially with stuff I was introduced to, 20 years ago or so. And I've seen even more complicated setups than the pictured here, that image I grabbed from Wikipedia, so that's not mine. But you usually have, your main scope and camera and electronic focuser, and you got your guide scope and the guide camera and maybe a guide computer, and you need a table and a battery pack and a laptop, and it's a whole thing and a huge investment. And when I saw SeeStar, I basically said, "Shut up and take my money," because I could see what it can do, and the effort and the barrier to entry into the astrophotography basically removed with smart scopes. And for better or for worse, you can kind of see the social media is like flooded with astrophotography right now. Well, it depends on what you follow, but but the time to set up, I don't know, when you back when I was getting started and like let's say you're a full-time college student, you also might have a part-time job or you have a full-time job and part-time in school, and you only have like a little fraction of time when you go outside and you want to observe something. You don't want to spend all night trying to set up and align something. I just want to quickly in 5 minutes set up and this is the huge uh, satisfaction of using smart scopes, is like you have immediate feedback, immediate satisfaction of looking at something. So I threw in a price list just for comparison, and because every time we do outreach and we have a crowd of people, I think the top two thing people ask is, can I take a picture and how much does this cost? And uh, so for comparison, I just kind of threw these all of these smart telescope prices, and obviously going to focus on what they can call like intro or maybe beginner. So they kind of slew on the less expensive side, especially for the SeeStar and Dwarf. But you can see there's other options out there, and we have some members in the club that have pretty much all of it, I suppose. There's some people have Celestron Origins. I know Ken has a couple Unistellars and Vesperas, so he's a great resource if you want to pin him to see his opinion on that. Uh, yeah, so I think every single smart telescope out there uses a Sony chip for imaging. So I think Sony kind of uh, cornered that market. And yeah, I mean, with the SeeStars, so they just recently came out with the S30 Pro, which is kind of pushing the limit of what I would call affordable there. But and they also, I think, discontinuing S50 with you cannot really buy it on their official web store anymore. And I don't know if it's ever going to go back in stock. So it's kind of interesting on how they're shifting from kind of discounts and entry level and kind of going back into the higher price ranges there. but we'll see what happens next and what they're gonna come up with the next model. And we can also pause here for a second and say that our CAS has 3 smart telescopes in inventory. So if you want to get you be quiet and see what they can do, you can get on the waiting list. And if you remember, grab one of these telescopes to try them out. Uh, we don't have to dwell on this table, but I kind of threw in for a quick comparison on between dwarf and SeeStars. And one thing to note here is that the DwarfLab Mini that just came out, and if you look at their specs, they're basically identical to SeeStar S30. So they just came out as a direct competitor to that, but you can also see that it's almost like twice the weight. So they basically figured out how to slim it down. Um, Couple things to note is that S30 Pro is the one with the 8 megapixel sensor, and SeeStar S50 and S30 they have 2 megapixels, and so same Dwarf Mini has 2, and then Dwarf 3 has 8 megapixels. So that's a nice size for entry level telescope. This is one of the slides from my earlier presentation. I just kind of threw it in there just in case we need it. But yeah, there's not much to dwell on except maybe that the tripod heads are different or connector. So it's not immediately swappable. You cannot just use a tripod from a SeeStar with a dwarf. And actually, dwarfs don't come with a tripod, so they don't have a tripod included. But you have to either buy it from them as an additional package, or maybe they assume you have your own photography tripod. So quick intro already to the SeeStar app. So and their comparative field of view. So when you open SeeStar Atlas, and if you're not connected to telescope, you can choose between different telescopes, and you can. So I grabbed those screenshots to compare the field of view, and then when you connect to the telescope, it shows you the field of view of that particular telescope. So that's a first thing that you can kind of see the differences between. If you ask what's the difference between S30 and S50, there's one quick difference for the field of view that by default fits. So if you're completely new to smart scopes, I have like a couple first-time user tips, and it kind of goes for any equipment out there or any telescope out there that you buy. You'll need to kind of power it on and download all the updates, the atlas. Everything takes a couple minutes to download, so you don't want to wait till you're out in the field in a clear night, and then you power it on, and all of a sudden you realize you need to either update something, or you need to charge it, or you need to free the memory. So uh, by default, with any equipment, practice on using it like maybe the night before or a couple hours before, especially if maybe you forgot to clear the memory and you need to upload everything to the computer. That will take a couple of minutes. So you always want to kind of get ready beforehand. And all of the smart scopes, and at least the ones I used, you can shoot video with them, so video will eat up your onboard storage as well. And if for uh, lunar and solar stacking, you want to shoot raw video, and raw video will take a lot. You don't need to take long video, but I got a quick stat in there, like 10 minutes of raw video is going to take up 14 gigabytes of your onboard storage. And for S50, you got 60 gigabytes, so that can fill up if you accidentally, for example, started recording and you forgot about it and it just keeps recording. It will stop at 10 minutes, but still, that fills up. And quick example of daytime use. So obviously, 2 megapixel sensors. it's way probably your cell phone has a lot bigger imaging sensors these days, and you probably can get a lot better photos with your cell phone during the day. But it's still kind of nice to have, and especially with that effect of being able to zoom in on the foreground and everything in the background is super washed out. Like I felt like it's a cool effect. And another thing with the SeeStar and daytime use, you don't have to have it perfectly level. So you could flip the camera on its side and take an image that way. And I have it on the video tripod where you can tilt it 90 degrees, and that way you basically shoot in landscape mode instead of vertical mode. But you could do that. And another thing about app updates, I mean, since I bought SeeStar 2 years ago, they had huge updates and functionalities. They added things that didn't exist before in there. So they added the Q mode, they added 4K mode, mosaic mode, shooting plan. So that's a lot of features that if you haven't used before, you want to download it, you want to learn about it, you want to practice how to use it. Don't wait till the last minute and a clear night before you use it. So. And with the updates, of course, sometimes it comes with they fix some bugs, they introduce new bugs, and then there was a couple weeks or months in the past where like they would push out updates like almost every other week or something, and then you'd go for a lull where there's no new updates. But I feel for the most part it's good to update unless you're one of those people you wanna let other people test ride it first. But I feel like there are some updates where you cannot ignore it. You have to like update before you can use it, and you don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere, open your app, and it says you need to update the firmware before you continue or something like that. So it's always good to check out beforehand. And next tip is rename your default Wi-Fi settings. So this screenshot on the left is from one of the star parties, and a lot of people have SeaStars now, and they all have this default generic name with this, serial number, and they all have probably the same default password, which is just 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and it can get confusing really quick. So I've been in some situations where uh, some people try to connect to my scope or vice versa, and like it can get really frustrating. So it's better to change your default settings and change the password, and uh, it makes it a lot easier out in the field. Like don't wait for last second. And another thing about trying to set up ahead of time is that picture there. It's a screenshot from a video I shot, but I was trying to. It was almost full moon. I was trying to shoot moonrise above the horizon. So I arrived at the location. Set up my scope maybe 15, 20 minutes before moonrise, and I couldn't connect to it. And I spent, I don't know, a good half hour or so fiddling with settings and trying to connect to it. And the moon already rose, and I was still sitting there being frustrated trying to connect. So it's one of those things you want to get ahead of it. And both Dwarf and SeaStar, they have uh, two Wi-Fi. What do you call it? The settings where you can do either do 5G or 2G, and sometimes I was at two different locations where there was super strong 5G interference and it just wouldn't connect. And once you switch it to 2G, it worked. So just something you kind of want to learn, want to keep in the back of your mind. And let's see. Next, well, there's both Dwarf and SeaStar allow you to connect to a station mode, connect to a router, so you can use your smart device with a telescope and be able to access the internet as well, and or you can connect directly to the scope. But for example, if you're not using your cell phone but using the iPad that doesn't have internet access, once you connect to your scope in direct mode, now you lose your internet access. So for certain applications, station mode is better and great. And if we have time at the end, maybe I can demo one of the scopes connected in station mode to the iPad, and then I can do Zoom share. Um, So another thing that's kind of neat in the SeeStar app is that you can pre-program locations ahead of time, and then that way, if who knows, for some reason your cell phone struggles with GPS signal or something, the app doesn't pick it up, you can already pre-program it in there. And I run into that where I switch between phones and tablets and iPads and whatnot. But once you have your preset location, it's kind of a breeze to just switch over to a new location when you first starting up for the night.
Hey,
Um,
Dmytro, quick question
yep,
on station mode.
yep.
It's not obvious what that means, that term. How
Right.
does it, why does it called station mode?
So I guess it may maybe it's called because you basically can set scope in just in one place, sort of like what Jeff does with the remote connections. And that's another thing I could talk about. And I had some screenshots where in SeeStar you can share your device with others, but it has to be connected to a router and it has to be connected out to the exposed to the internet and the outside world. So station mode allows you to bridge your smart device out to the rest of the internet. And with the SeeStar, if you download the SeeStar app and you create an account and you give me your email address, I can log in into the app and punch in, Kevin as a guest user, and I send you an invitation, and you can start controlling my scope by yourself,
Oh,
sitting where you are from your home.
wow.
So, so that's another thing where we could potentially test, for example, is that set up a scope out in Woodridge and you don't have to come out there. I can just send you the invitation and you can control it, and the scope will be sitting there until someone packs it up.
Oh,
So,
gee.
but that's where you need the station mode. Without the station mode, you wouldn't be able to bridge the connection.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Yep, and it also it kind of improves the connection as well. So by default, the Wi-Fi chip on those devices they don't have that much of a range. So sometimes I notice that out at Woodridge, you set it up somewhere by the picnic table, you go inside the shed and you already have difficulty connecting to it. But a station router can probably extend the length of your physical separation from your and your smart device and the scope out there. And that's one of the cool advantages of these smart scopes. Using it here, I can, especially in the winter, I can set it out in the patio, and you can be sitting by the fireplace, and there could be two or three walls between you if you use a station mode router to bridge it, and you can be nice and toasty and warm and connect your telescope that sits out in the yard. Uh, let's see. So. There's a quick field of view comparison again between S50 and S30 shooting the sun. And this was before I learned that you can do video stacking, so you can kind of see the image is a little bit blurry, but not as good as it could get. But that's one of those things for read the manual. And I was excited to use the scope that I've been using it for a year without knowing some of the features in it. And raw video stacking is one of them, which improves solar and lunar observation.
Hey, Dmytro,
Yep.
question. So does the SeeStar have filters built in,
They
or
have dual band filter built in, and they have solar filter external. So I got them right there. I don't know if camera
okay?
picks it up. Yep. So these are the solar filters, and these are physically external. You have to for the S50, it's like a friction fit. You have to put it in, and for S30, it's magnetic fit, or it's a metal ring, so you can kind of snaps onto the magnet on S30.
Huh.
And the dual band filter is built in, so it's a toggle in the app. Like we can look at it when we get there. I think I might have a screenshot in there. Yep, and a dwarf has also a filter, and which kind of covers both of the lenses. You can see it, so it's not one of these silver. I don't know if it's Bader filter, but this is like a just heavy neutral density filter for the solar observation. And if we have time or desire, I can probably go snap it on the scope right now because I think the sun is actually starting to hit my balcony. And there's another example of sunspots. So this is so obviously more zoomed in, so you could see this is the entire field of view of the sun in S15. You can kind of zoom in a bit to it. And that's another picture where I didn't know about stacking yet, but so I could probably get more details. But you could see the nice details around the sunspots. It was nice activity there. And for the moon, you see, so this image on the left, I took before I knew that you can stack, and then some months or years, a year later, I knew about stacking, and I guess I took a almost similar phase moon, but now it's video stack. So it may or may not show up over Zoom, but it looks a little bit crisper for me for the stacked image. So these days, every time I shoot the moon, I'll do a quick snap on stack, just like a single frame shot, and sometimes you get lucky with the image. But with video stacking, I think it brings out the quality really well. And so this is an example of this last week. I got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday moon. All stacked, and I was pleased with the results of first of all being able to catch it three days in a row, and then that very first thin crescent that's like less than 1% eliminated. So that was a neat photo.
Dmytro,
Yeah.
this is Bill Rockwell. How on the stacking? So you're shooting a video like you
Yes.
would for deep sky, and you're doing 10-second shots, or are you stacking previous one shots that you've taken?
So it's shoots raw video. So raw mode is like AVI. There's a specific file format for that. I might need to dig out the actual details. So
Okay, yeah,
when you shoot video with any camera, you can do usually for most sensors you can do MPG, which is like different format, more compressed, and you can do raw video, uncompressed video, and that's the .avi format.
right.
It usually big, a lot more on the file size, so it's uncompressed, and the app allows you to. It's basically like a little toggle. I might have a screenshot on how it's done. It's like a toggle. You just enable it, you shoot the video, and I usually do like 10 seconds is enough, and because it fills up memory really quick, and also there is kind of cost benefit thing where the longer you shoot the video, you need to a lot more time to process it, and the result might be the same as with the 10-second video. So usually you don't have to go more than 10 seconds. But
Okay.
the settings are not Astro settings. It kind of uses its own default. Well, like I might also show it. So you have a little you have your own tag slider. You can adjust the exposure, and usually it's like measured in milliseconds plus gain if you want to. Because what I notice is that by default it kind of overexposes the moon, so you want to dial it down just a notch to get all of the details on the bright edge and on the darker edge. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Yep. And so here's a shot of the moon with dwarf. So I noticed with the new updates, when you look at the moon, they give you a zoomed in shot right away because with the 8 megapixel and the field of view, usually the moon looks kind of tiny on their screen, so they immediately give you the zoomed in shot, and I guess that's one of my attempts to shoot it with dwarf. And they also started giving you like these overlays. I think a year ago that was my criticism of the DwarfLab, is that especially for the beginner or for layperson, they didn't give you any overlay options, and sometimes you take an image and you don't know when you took it or what it is, and they added this recently with the overlays, and obviously serious astrophotographers don't want any overlays on their image, but I sometimes like to save both. And I actually wish there was an option where with one click you would get two images, one just raw image and one with the overlay of, maybe a timestamp or something at least. So some people in the past asked, can you do planets with the SeeStar? And it's challenging, but it also kind of, you gotta manage your expectations of what you can do. And so I, just as an example, I threw in there an image of Mars and Saturn. So that's like probably as best as you can get with a Saturn, what's there. And that was almost like 2 years ago now, or a year and a half. But yeah, the angular resolution is just not there for planets, and we can maybe I'll save it for like a learning session. But like the arc seconds of apparent size for the planet and the angular pixel resolution, maybe that's a homework to calculate how many pixels of Saturn can you actually image with this. But you can still do fun stuff. So like there was a occultation of Mars with the moon, and we were out there at LMO shooting, and I set up a SeeStar outside to try to get it. And I think we had just Venus occultation a couple days ago, and Joe Mello did it with his star, and I think he posted some shots out on Slack. So it's doable, and it's fun to even, so let's say Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, you're not gonna get anything beyond a couple pixels in the image, but it's fun to do if for example, there is a like a retrograde motion event or something, so you could shoot it overnight and then just compare the motion against the background stars, for example. So you kind of manage your expectations on what you want to do with the planetary imaging, but there's some fun to be had. And I know Dave was excited to like shoot Pluto, for example, because it's one of those super faint targets, and SeeStar has enough to power to resolve those faint things out there, and you can get Pluto if you want to. There's quick comparison of field of view of Dwarf and S50. So this is where your 2 megapixel and 8 megapixels come in play, where the object looks similar in size, but you just get a lot more of the field with Dwarf. And also, yeah, just the relative size and orientation. So you notice that the SeeStar sensor is kind of vertically aligned with the, I guess, axis. I don't know how to best explain it. And then Dwarf is more vertical. So it kind of comes in play with certain objects and how you want to frame it. Let's see, yeah, and similar focal length in both scopes. So it's really the sensor size and the orientation that's kind of the difference there. I have screenshots of both apps. So SeeStar on the left and Dwarf on the right. And it kind of depends on your aesthetics, I guess, and opinions. But to me, the SeeStar is like a little bit, seems a little bit more polished, a little bit more user-friendly. And once you connect to the scope, you kind of, I feel like it's a lot more for user-friendly for beginners. So like you can immediately kind of sense what you want to do, what do you want to click on. You have your options to go stargazing or look at scenery, you know. So, but with new updates, they'll start cramming a lot kind of more noise. There's like this area over here, it starts flashing advertisements at you for whatever reason. Like I didn't need it, and I could have went without it. And if you're not connected to the internet, I think so it kind of displays like black squares here. So what once you connect to the internet, it starts showing you stuff. And then they jammed a little AI assistant in there as well that's speaking its head out. And Dwarf looks a little bit more, I don't know how to say, engineering, boring, and it's not as polished. And I think their software is like second to their hardware, where they could have spent a little bit more trying to polish it or make it user friendly. Like some of this quick criticism here, like some of these settings, like they don't have to be front and center on the main page of your app. That could have been hidden somewhere in some settings. But anyway, and this is their catalog of objects. So on the left is the SeeStar, and again, it's like it's kind of looks a lot more polished. You can immediately start browsing through the catalog. You have that feature up top that most telescopes have, smart telescopes have, like the best, what's best out there right now. And in Dwarf, it's like a list of things, and you can click through the categories on top, and you get the same thing, but it just organized slightly different. To me, it seems like SeeStar is a little bit more user-friendly, more polished. But where Dwarf excels, I think, is the different modes. Like you can do, well, with the S30 Pro now, you can also do Milky Way and star trails. But this one feature here with Dwarf that it can do panoramic shots, so I'll talk about later. But I was kind of, it took me a while to test it out, but once I tested it, I was kind of floored with what it can do. And it's basically the scope will, during daytime, it will take panoramic photo and automatically stitch it for you, and you can get some super crazy gigapixel photos. And I think that was one of their selling points that kind of hooked me. Is I always like doing panoramic shots, and that feature is kind of neat. I'll admit that to Dwarf. We can talk about equatorial setup. So when the SeeStars first came out, it was only to be used in Alt-Az mode, but then with the new updates, now you can do equatorial mode and polar alignment. So on the right is my usual setup with my S50s. I put it on the video fluid head tripod. So it's not astronomical tripod specifically, but it's very easy to do polar alignment on, and it's like a fluid head, so you can unclamp it and then tilt it with the handle and then clamp it again. And to me, it's like speeds up the alignment. Another thing that's became popular is like these Skywatcher type wedges, and if you go on Amazon, there's probably like 20 different copycats you can get. But one of the things you gotta watch out for is that screw there that will that will mess up your connecting the scope to it, because it will impede the rotation. So I got one, but I had to upgrade, and I don't know if you can see it. I upgraded the screw to one of these. So equatorial mode allows you for longer exposures. So 30 second, 60-second exposures now doable. And I think if you don't have EQ mode enabled, that 60-second exposure is hidden. You're not able to use it. And so Dwarf telescope doesn't come with the tripod, so you have to do it, get a tripod separately. And
so just quick question. So in the EQ mode, the SeeStar software has a polar alignment function in there then that will
yes,
tell you how to move your tripod.
yes,
Oh, okay,
yep,
neat.
yep. And same with Dwarf as well. They guide you to it. It just I found SeeStar a lot easier and quicker to use it. Every time I set up Dwarf, it takes me extra, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes for some reason. Maybe it's user error, I admit, but I always found the SeeStar a lot more user friendly. Let's see. So yeah, so I feel Dwarfs, they are super lightweight, so like any irregular photo tripod will work. And actually, I bought like one of these tiny, basically desktop tripods, and it will work fine with Dwarf. And for the SeeStar, I like to use that more beefier video tripod, and it feels more secure, especially tilted for the polar alignment. And yeah, quick tip: if you do it for the first time, you might want to manage your weight and make sure that you align it so it's over one of the legs on the tripod. Or put a usual trick of bag of bricks or your battery on underneath the tripod hook to weigh it down a little bit. So there's other options out there. So a quick preview of someone extended the Vixen tail with the 3D printed setup, and there's also a company out there that sells these like custom made badges for, like, you tell them which altitude you are at, or latitude, well, longitude, what I'm saying, and they'll print one of these, but it's obviously, it will be only good for where you are, not for traveling. But I think, I think Larry has one of these. So there's different options out there, and now there's a huge second, or let's call it third-party accessory market out there for a lot of things, doing stuff with because the SeeStars are so popular. And I had a quick note here, I guess, for if you're new to tripods and camera tripods. There is a quick note that if you already have your standard camera tripod at home, you can remove the head, and this thread right here is going to be the same that the SeeStar will accept, and the one on top is usually 1/4 inch screw, and this is the one that a Dwarf accepts. So if you want to put SeeStar on top of that, you need either adapter, and I have one of these. You can see, so some of the tripods will come with the adapter, so you can convert 1 1/4 to 3/8. So in LTS mode, I usually just put it directly on the tripod without the head on top of it. And I switch back and forth depending on how much time I want to waste doing polar alignment. So SeeStars and smart telescopes are they're perfectly usable in LTS mode, except certain functions where you want to do longer exposures, or for Dwarf, for example, you cannot do mosaic mode unless you do polar alignment. So they have that limitation there. There's another accessory that a lot of smart scope users have, is this level in 8. It comes with the 3 screws, and you just put it on top of your existing tripod, and then now you can put your other head or SeeStar directly on top of it, and you can use those knobs to level out. And there's a setting in the app where they show you their own internal sensors for alignment, so it's kind of a useful thing for that. And again, it's like leveling your game. It will work without alignment, but if you want to be super perfect about everything, you can get all of your alignments down to 0.0 if you want that. And in the app, when you switch mode, the SeeStar will collapse your arm. So sometimes I need to kind of remember before you open in the setting up telescope, and then you switch mount mode, it will collapse the arm again and start rotating. So like it's one of those things where you want to kind of remember in the back of your head of which mode you want to use today, and set the mode before you open the telescope. But it also has a little neat, at least I like these kind of little tiny details where there's a visual cue in which mode your scope is right now. So if it has a green LED, depending on your color blindness, maybe, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it has a green LED for EQ mode, and it has orange LED for LTS mode. I find it useful. And so here's the quick screenshot of the app of which you were talking about, the helping you to align. So first it will ask you to get the angle correct before you do anything else, and then you can do polar alignment, and it will tell you how many degrees to turn, left or right or up or down to get the polar alignment correctly. And what I found is that when you start rotating your scope, it uses its own, I believe, its own sensors to see, tilt sensors, how much you turn. But then when you click the button to refresh deviation, it actually does plate soloing. So sometimes you want to do it multiple times in a row, even if you get the green check mark, just to make sure you're perfectly aligned. But we'll do that. And then on the right, you'll see the options in the app. So it will enable that 60-second exposure now. And quick review here is that some of the new features, so the 4K mode that didn't exist about a year and a half ago, so they added it here. And they now just recently added this aircraft line eliminating, so aircrafts and satellites supposedly can get removed automatically from auto stacking. I haven't had a chance to extensively test that out yet, but it's there.
Does that
And
include the satellite trails too?
in theory, yeah. So it would be interesting to, if you shoot in a low target and every single frame has satellite trails, I'm curious what they do with it, because I assume they would just throw away that frame. But if every single frame has a satellite in it, so I'm curious what they're gonna do. But also, I'm not entirely sure how it works, so I'll need to test it out and then I'll report back in a couple months.
Well, I was out the other night with my rig, and I was taking 120-second exposures, and I would
Yeah,
say 9 out of 10 frames had
right.
star trails. I mean, satellite trails.
Right. Well, this is where your smarter image processing will do, where it will stack your images and then it will remove the trail just because it's the outlier. I don't know if the simple processing in SeeStar, whether it does that or it just throws away the frame or not, but we'll see. Okay. So this 4K toggle, what it does is doing drizzling, what's called in outer image world, Astro-Image world, and it's only available for live stacking in the SeeStar. But I found it useful, and I think it really does improve the image. Obviously, depending on the target, but so I have a screenshot here from our earlier presentation. So this is about a year ago image. So I got triangular galaxy, and then I have 4K on the right and the regular whatever default 2 megapixel image that comes out. So it's not exactly same night and same conditions and same location. So I'll give you that. So it's not apples to apples comparison, but I still think the image on the right came out a lot more crisper and nicer. And yeah, both of them are 30-minute exposures, and I assume it was like 10 or 20-second exposure per frame. But I really was kind of impressed with the image I got on the right. And if you're having trouble visualizing what 4K versus default is, so this is the comparison of the actual size. So you get a lot more information in the same field of view, and to me, it seems like it's worth it. But you can only do it live for whatever reason. You cannot do it in post processing. Um, Obviously, or using the default app. If you do Serial or whatever your other Magic apps, you could probably do Drizzle in there as well. But I'm not there yet. I haven't graduated to your levels. I have this semi-finished slide in here about framing, but that's one of the things where it's also an older app version, it looks like. But if you're just starting out, if this is your first time using Smart Scope and you just found Andromeda Galaxy in the catalog and you go click image it, you might want to reframe it or frame your image differently. And this is the example of the default field of view and what you can do when you extend the framing size to twice as much, and then you can rotate the frame, and now you can fit the entire Andromeda Galaxy and start shooting that. So with bigger targets, you obviously want to do mosaic mode. You want to reframe it and play around with the orientation. So when I took that screenshot, I also realized that might not be actually a good photo because Andromeda will be aligned kind of parallel to your image, and that usually comes out looking boring. You want it kind of like diagonally to fit in there. Just quick tip. So that's also from my earlier presentations about the mosaic. So this is how it actually works. So mosaic doesn't take a shot and then moves over entire field of view and takes another shot next to it. It kind of does a little what I call spiral search, where it moves just a little bit at a time, and keep stacking overlays. So you can kind of see on the bottom here like a little trail of frames that it leaves while it's stacking. And the effect of it is, I don't know if it's good or bad, or it just how it works is that sometimes you can spend exposing an image, but only a little wedge of it was actually going to go into what you're shooting. So sometimes the app is kind of done that way. Uh, but it also kind of all depends on your setup. And I guess this is where sometimes playing around with orientations and alt-az mode versus equatorial mode, you can kind of see uh, how much longer you might need to shoot certain targets. And one of the side effects of the mosaic mode and within the SeeStar app is that you cannot really do any post-processing until it's complete. So on the left, I show here like there's that button to denoise the image, and it will not denoise it until the entire mosaic is complete. So you have to either, if you're kind of done for the night, you will not be able to denoise it in app. You would have to come back to reprocess it or something. But so yeah, you'll have to stop it and move on. And yes, just to repeat, then Dwarf will not be able to shoot the mosaic mode unless you do polar alignment. But the SeeStar you can do either or. And then another option in SeeStar, quote unquote AI denoising. I don't know, they just had to jam it in there because it's a hot keyword. And so like 2 years ago, I think they just denoised it without calling it anything. They just, and I think it was automatic, but they added this button and they had to call it AI denoising. But you can, and I think in the earlier versions, they didn't allow you to do it after the fact. You only had to do it live. So I recommended that, but I think these days you can do either or. You don't have to necessarily do it when you save the image after your live session, but the only way I recommend doing it during live is that you get that 4K drizzle in. So when you save the 4K drizzle mode, you want to do AI denoising. Otherwise, you can do it after the fact. And I don't know how it reflects over Zoom, but you can kind of see the compare before and after the denoising in app. Uh, and right after you do that denoising, you also have these sliders to call quote unquote Photoshop your image, where you have a slider for brightness, contrast, and saturation. And this is basically almost all of the images I posted. They were just processed right there in the SeeStar app, and sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning out in the field. So I just do quick denoise before I save, adjust the brightness, contrast, and I save the image. And quick warning is that if you're, it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you're tired, and use the dark screen where you dial down the screen brightness all the way down, and you start playing around with image processing. So sometimes the results may vary. So like sometimes I look at the image the next day and I wonder like, what was I thinking over boosting that contrast way up? Well, it's because my screen was super dimmed and I couldn't see. But I think for what simple image processing the app can do, I was kind of amazed with the results.
So the denoising, it looks like it takes out the blue in the background, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, and I have two monitors, and it looks different on my monitors. It's not necessarily blue, but there's also like just noise in between the stars as well.
Okay.
But in this case, it does look like it made it more black and white versus the blue purplish contrast that you see there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I guess more natural. And I feel like all of these results, they will differ between your sky conditions and clouds that night, or specs in your lens and which version of the app you're using. Like your mileage is always varies with these things, but so another neat feature in the SeeStar is that they have a little button that's called mark, and that's like marks the targets within the field of view that you're shooting right now. And I found fascinating when you're out there doing it live. you shoot in one thing, or you shoot in Mercarian chain, and you can just mark every single target out there. It's kind of amazing. And I should have mentioned it in the beginning when they first introduced the smart scopes. Is like not everyone using it for imaging. So we have some members who like smart scopes, and they don't really save or post-process images. They just like you using it as electronic assisted astronomy. You just looking at the target live, and you can show it to during the outreach to people around you, and then just click stop and you go home. You don't really do any image processing. And I think with this kind of functions like marking the objects is kind of neat, especially if there's like some cool targets nearby the other main target. Let's see. And with the other apps, I mean, I'm focusing on the SeeStar app, but other apps have slightly different ways of doing it. And I know it's either Vianis or Unistellar app. They show you kind of a little live time lapse of your image being stacked or quote unquote developed. So I know Ken showed it to me where like on the screen, you can just use a little slider up and down and you could see you've imaged, let's say M101 for 20 minutes. And you can use that slider and you can basically like develop more and more detail and feature. So it's kind of neat visual aid for, outreaches and whatnot. And nice feature. So one thing you can do with this is shoot comets, and I probably have better photos out there, but I just used the slide from my earlier presentation. I just threw it in there. So this is from 2024 when we had that A3 comet. So if you're brand new to imaging comets, you can practice framing. So sometimes you don't want the center of the comet to be in the center of the image. You want to move it a little bit to the bottom. That way you can get more of a tail. Also, with the mosaic mode, you might need to be prepared that you might not, depending on which portion of the sky the SeeStar will decide to dwell on first, you might get gaps in the core. So I don't know how long I was shooting here for, but you can definitely see that the comet moved in between. So it's not a star on a comet, but it's comet in both dots, but it got separated. But it's a neat thing you can do. I haven't done any of the post-processing, so I probably have bunch of comet data out there. I would want to you can then use your serial and your other imaging apps to restack it such that you can maybe show the movement of a comet in above in background stars, or you can just maybe bring out a lot more detail on the tail. I just never had a time to go and dig through all of my images. And another neat thing was to shoot Asteroid Vesta. So that was a year ago. We were out there at Woodridge Farm Brewery, and Vesta was, I don't know, doing its closest approach or whatever. And so it was a hot thing in the news. And so I shot some data over 2 hours, and I was able to this is like a super quick attempt to create an animation between like 3 or 4 frames. So you could see the asteroid move across the background stars, and I was kind of amazed what we can do there. And, budget smart telescope, and you can do some neat things. I threw this image just for gags, is that Dwarf 3 doing wide field Milky Way mode. So that second wide angle camera on Dwarf, it's not it's like low quality 2 megapixel camera, so it's not even a Sony sensor. So it cannot do too much, but I think they drag out some detail with the software processing. So that was my quick attempt, and I should probably try again, see if their new software can do more or better. And I also have a slide from S30 Pro, which Ken Hand gave me this image. So he was out there in Woodridge Farm Brewery, and he shot that so it's basically a quick shot, 12 minutes. You should be able to recognize Orion. And depending on your monitor, there's a little bit more detail in the, Barnard loop over there, and you get your Orion Nebula in there in the middle. But I was kind of impressed on what that can do. So with more time and more practice, you can probably with the S30 Pro, you can do cool Milky Way shots. So both SeeStar and Dwarf, you can do plan mode. So depending on your weather and your preferences, and you can set up a plan, set up the telescope outside, and then go back inside and just let it do its thing. So you can set up plans within the app, and that interface is a little bit clunky because you have to. In the app, you have to use your finger to drag these windows, which object you want to take the image, and it's there, but I haven't really used it because I didn't need to. I like to. I'm usually out there sitting by my scope anyway, so I haven't really used this feature extensively, but it's out there if you need to. And I assume people who control them remotely from New Mexico, you could probably set up your nightly plan. And one thing out there is that you can, even if you're shooting the same target, you can break it in chunks, so it will force refocusing on the target. That's one trick I think people use. But also, I have a little screenshot of while it's doing the plan mode, you can't really do anything else within the app, so you can set it and you have to leave. And they have little within the app, all of the objects. When you click on the object for more details, they have this little graph, which I find useful, where it shows you where in the sky it is, if it's rising or getting low through the horizon. So you can either for plan mode or just regular observing, you can always check where in the sky is your thing that you want to look at. So I find it very useful. So we can talk about some other things, like you can, so talking about the third-party market for all the accessories, you can do focusing with the Bakhtinov mask external one. So I think EV scopes came with one because you had, or at least the very first one, you had to focus manually, so it came with the Bakhtinov masks. For the SeeStar, I actually 3D printed one because I have a 3D printer, and that's when you have a hammer, everything's a nail. So I found a model online, so I printed one for myself, and then you can see this is like super old screenshot of the app, like maybe 2 years ago. But you could use Bakhtinov masks to improve your focusing, and then you look at your counts, and you can adjust up or down to get your lines perfectly symmetrical.
So Dmytro, how close was the? I mean, this is pretty nice, like a Bakhtinov mask.
Yep.
How close was it without doing the refocusing using the Bakhtinov mask?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably fine. So it's one of those things where sometimes you want to be just perfect, and it again, maybe devices vary, maybe conditions vary, and sometimes you want to check yourself if you want to, spend 3 nights doing super amazing photo, and you want to be super perfect every night. You might want to use that, but it's an option. I feel like outer focus, with different updates and different app updates, different firmware updates, sometimes it kind of it varies, and you don't know if it's the conditions or it's the app or the software. But I found that sometimes you move to the target and it kind of looks blurry. You move to the brighter star, you focus it, you kind of try to remember the numbers on when you did autofocus on a bright star, and then you move back to the target that you want to shoot, and it's kind of how you use the tool. And everything I'm talking about is like it's all secondary, right? You can just set up your SeeStar in default mode and forget about it. But if you want to get to the next step or next level of detail, you can always do something with monkeying with all the variables. So speaking of the 3D printing stuff, there's like thriving community out there. So I went to one of my go-to 3D printing sites, and you just where people share models for free, and you can just type in SeeStar S50, and then there's already 50 so models that popped out. So me being me, I had to start downloading, start printing, so you can print your filter adapter. So like if you have a better, nicer dual band filter, you can just print a filter adapter and uh, use that instead of the built-in filter. People do a whole bunch of like light shields and battery pack holders, and yeah, there's fun stuff you can do with 3D printer. And these days, I think multiple club members have 3D printers in the club. So if you actually want to print something, I'm pretty sure we can figure out. Like I can probably print something for you as well. One thing I printed and tried was the star diffraction spikes, and this is where astrophotography moves into more of the art versus science part of it. Or also, your mileage may vary, and your whether you think it's useful or not varies. But you can play around with things like adding different star patterns. But this is like physical. I know you can do it out in software, but this is like basically this physical effect. And I think Dwarf app just recently added a button in the app processing where you can do star spikes when you do your post processing. I haven't tested it yet, but I'll try. And it might mess up with your tracking as well. So sometimes SeeStar they will see a star trail, and they think your alignment is off or something. So it also, yeah, it will depend on your results a little bit. And I just threw this in there. I did Messier Marathon earlier in March, and I used S50 and S30 to complete it, all but one target. And I feel like from a location here, you probably don't see M30 anyway. You probably need to go more south to get it. But if you squint, you should see the portrait of Messier on the left, made out of the images I shot that night on the SeeStar, and just taking a couple minutes per target and moving on to the next target. And this is where what you can do with a smart telescope is I got 109 targets in one night. I don't know if I would ever be able to do it manually, learning the entire sky and trying to find it. But this is a huge selling point of a smart telescope to me.
So how did you do the picture of Messier?
There are like apps that you can like throw all your images at it, and you tell it what you want out of the mosaic, and it will do it for you. It's an automatic thing.
That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. I think there's like a free open source software for it. A lot of people use it for that. So every time you see like images out online where it's one big image made out of something else, they probably the 90% chance they use that same software. So I guess I've been droning a lot. I have a couple more slides, and I could switch from presentation to just showing the images. I can also switch to actual app, and maybe we can take a 5-minute break and can go put a solar filter on the scope and then observe it. But let's see. So I have like a little conclusion. If you haven't noticed yet, I think I lean more towards the SeeStar, and I just find it a lot easier to use. And I had Dwarf for maybe a year, maybe more, and I always bring it, but I always lean toward the SeeStar because it was so much simpler to set it up. But I do realize that Dwarf has bigger sensor. So if I collect a lot more data and I do my processing like in serial or something, I should probably consider collecting more data with it. And has that more features. And I don't know if I included that slide. I'll go through my pictures one more time, but it has that gigapixel mode, which I really enjoy. And the thing about processing is that all of the images I showed today, I basically processed out there and out in the field after taking the image. And with Dwarf, you need internet connection. You need to upload your stacked image onto their cloud, and you have to use their servers to do image processing. And depending on your views on how much you like sending everything to someone else's clouds, yeah, to me it seems like it's a step backwards, because I think earlier versions didn't require that. This is the new app feature that they force you to upload the image if you want to process it with their app. But
Hey, Dmytro,
yep.
would you mind just talking for maybe about 15 seconds about that DwarfLab email they sent to us?
Well, maybe you can, but yeah, they basically offered either a discount to our members, and to see if anyone has any issues with it, we could probably reach out to them, and they could probably provide feedback if you know, if we don't know how to use it, or maybe offer more resources for us. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else, but it looks like they're saying that they could offer us some kind of discount as part of Astronomy Club.
Yeah, and I got the impression too that they were looking just for generally for feedback if you have issues
Right.
and if there are problems, and maybe they would use that information to, to make some corrections. I
Right.
also sent a note back to them and said, we would also appreciate, I don't know if they'll do it or not, but when you're getting ready to put out another product, we would be happy to take that product for free and evaluate it and pass that information to our members and then send it back to you. So we'll
Yep.
see what they do with that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like as a finishing touch to the comparison at the bottom, they continuously should push out updates as well. So the scope that I started with 2 years ago, it has whole array of new functionalities. So yeah, they continuously do upgrade it. Sometimes introduce bugs, sometimes introduce AI assistants now, which I don't care for, but it's there. And if you want to talk about it, I can show you some screenshots of that as well. But
Well,
so,
I have a quick one for you. For the folks that don't that have just been using it to as easy as they can. I got the impression when I borrowed the one from the club, I got the impression that the updates may not have been done, and there was a process that looked like it was going to take me more than 30 seconds, so I didn't do it.
right.
But
Was that for the dwarf too?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I'm
so
actually. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I was wondering if maybe since this is recorded, if you might say something about how often that occurs and what you might be
Right.
doing if you're not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell what's introduced as well, and especially with Dwarf 2, I don't know how much backward compatibility they introduced to the older devices, or maybe all of their new updates are kind of focusing on the new devices. So I would need to get my hands back on it to actually try it out. But basically, with updates, there's two uh, schools of thoughts. Is that you let someone else try that first, and then you go online and read the reviews of what was updated, what was fixed, or what was broken, or you can just update it and hope for the best. And I think for the most part, I mean, 9 out of 10 times, it's a good thing. So like companies. I guess I'll say it with a grain of salt. Like, hope they don't try to break you their old devices, and they actually improve it. And uh, yeah, so it's usually a good thing to update. You get more. Well, uh, another thing. Sorry if I'm being a little bit scared, but like they have their Sky Atlas, and you wanna always get those updates because they include comets or new objects, or uh, so for like comets and asteroids, you always want to get that new Sky Atlas update, and that's another thing you want to do it maybe at home while on Wi-Fi and test it out before you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it tells you open the Sky Atlas and it says it needs to be updated before you can use it. So it,
So,
it's
so is this something though that it notifies you when there's an update, kind of like my Windows computer does, and does most of them automatically, or do you actually have to go and seek out and find the
right.
that there's an update?
So there's two things. So like you can have the app that's on your device, like on your iPad or Android phone or whatever, and you can also have the firmware that's on the telescope. So some people do manual updates for anything that they have on their phone, or they can do automatic updates for anything they have on their phone. And if you have it set up to automatically download updates, but it's out of sync with firmware on your telescope, it might eventually you might get some kind of update that says, with this app, you're absolutely required to upgrade your telescope before you can use it. So that's, yeah, that's something you need to consider. I don't know. Did I see like a chat flash? Was there
Oh, yeah,
something in
that
the
was
chat?
Bill Rocco says he's going to have to drop off.
Okay. So yeah, thanks for joining. Yep. Yeah. So
Sorry about that. I misfired. I should have just unmuted and said, "Hey, great presentation.
well, thanks.
I got a bunch of grandkids that need to go fishing, so
All right.
I got to leave early. But this is going to be
Post Posted
posted.
and record. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I'll pick up the rest of it. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for doing this.
Yep. Enjoy your Sunday.
Okay, thanks.
So with the S50 being apparently discontinued, did I see something out there that they might be coming out with something like an S70 or something?
There's rumors, right? So I don't think I've seen any confirmed news releases or anything like that. But
When we were
But
at
the current landscape then is S30 or S30 Pro from CWO.
I think so, yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't even know if they ship S30s anymore. Well, maybe, but it's kind of weird when they come out with products and they don't want to compete with their own product, right? So they almost have to discontinue one for the other. But yeah,
when we were
I'm just
at
wondering which
NEAF,
one
they
my
said that there's
7-month-old
going to be
grandson needs.
when we were at NEAF, they said there's going to be an S50 Pro coming out next.
right.
S50 Pro?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Now, so I mean, what I'm seeing on the S30 and S30 Pro is primarily it's megapixels, right? So you're getting a better pixel image resolution, pixel scale between the two. Or
Right.
did it actually improve the field of view as well?
Because it's a bigger sensor, it's also
It is bigger too. Okay.
it's a different field of view, and I think they might have added like an extra lens in there, so it's supposedly better. I didn't do that big dive into what's the actual lens quality is, but um, so if I go, well, maybe I can return back to the slide, but there was a comparison of the field of view of S30 and S30 Pro, and S30 Pro has a lot bigger field of view because of the
Right,
lenses
right.
and
Yeah, you're right. I remember that now. Yep. I mean, what's impressive about the S30 Pro is it's essentially the same field of view as my Epsilon, my Takahashi Epsilon that's out there remote for, I don't want to say what fraction of the price.
yeah, I was gonna say. Right, so this is the biggest selling point to me. I was always kind of, a fan of a good deal, and the price point of these intra smart scopes, and I mean, for some people, even this price is a little bit on the steeper side compared to, your Casco department store telescope, but for all of the smarts they pack into it and all of the automation, I'm impressed, and I'm glad they're doing it. I enjoyed my exposure to the smart scopes.
I can say, as a guy who just recently got into the astrophotography stuff, and I bought a refractor, um, for the first 6 months, every week was like, oh, I need that too.
Yeah,
Gotta buy
it,
some of that,
it every
and
single do that adds up, right? So,
yeah, and this has most of it in there.
right,
So,
it's usable out of the box.
But
Yep.
I see some people have described these as, they're kind of the gateway drug to astrophotography, but I see more and more astrophotographers with high-end rigs buying these just, because they're that easy, right?
And
Throw 'em in
portable.
your
You can
backyard.
and
Yeah,
throw it in your backpack and you can fly with it, right? So
yeah, yeah.
hey, Dmytro, I had a question for you on the mosaic mode. So I read somewhere it said that, on the mosaic, and of course, with these pictures and what we're doing, maybe it doesn't even matter much, but it said on the mosaic that at the interface between the mosaics, it can create some type of
Artifact.
artifact. Yeah, yeah. Are you noticing any of that?
Not with the SeeStars, but you also will use your other software to process it. So it all depends on which Photoshop you use, right? And how well it can stack and merge things. And so with the SeeStar, I haven't noticed anything that.
Okay.
Yeah, mosaic mode, as he described it here for SeeStars, is very, very different from what you would do with, a regular astrophotography system, right? You do two separate panels and you have to stitch them together, and that's where a lot of artifacts come in. Is you quite often end up with a seam. What he showed here is it's kind of a single image. It's just walking over it and
Yeah.
adding detail and it makes sense because it's more of an EAA scope. It's just stacking whatever data it has in whatever region. It's kind of interesting.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so you can almost see on the left side, you'll see artifacts while it's building, but in the final image, it will kind of blend everything together. But and yeah, that's one of the things I was surprised on how it's done. I was expecting it to be like a frame here and a frame here, and then stitch it together, but it's doing this little spiral search.
So another question for you, for the folks who are just kind of messing with. So I've messed with this a few times. I haven't spent any time trying to get into the real details, but when I was using the Dwarf 2 and the SeeStar, I only noticed like four buttons. It was like, turn
Right.
it on, pick something. So I didn't see all this other stuff. Is this all hidden, or I just wasn't looking for it?
Right. And certain options, I mean, they're hidden around. And this is where I found the SeeStar is a lot more intuitive to find things versus Dwarf. And if you like, if app-averse and not intuitive and another thing with updates, when Dwarf did this redesign a couple months ago, they just completely rearranged everything. I was super confused, and it's not intuitive. And in SeeStar, some screenshots that I've shown, they have little markings on the all the buttons, and I found it super useful. I mean, like, who knows what these buttons are, but when there's a description next to it, it's kind of easier to find things you're looking for. So that light pollution filter, which is a Dubin filter, I don't like when they call it light pollution, but it's just a little circle, right? You have no idea what that button does, but and Dave noticed that for him, it's even hard to see when it's enabled or disabled because it's a little tiny shade of change. And that's a separate topic of usability of things for like toggle buttons. How should you display whether it's on or off, and which shade communicates that it's on and which shade of green or red communicates that it's off. But I found that SeeStar is a lot more easier, and those little three dots on top is where you get your different exposure settings and more advanced stuff. So like you click around and you expose a lot more settings. So this, if I was to click the three buttons, it brings this menu from the top where you can choose your exposure and then the toggles as well for 4K, for example.
Gotcha.
But I can switch to Dwarf as well, and we can talk about it some more. Where that's where I find the biggest drawback of Dwarf is that their screen is arranged just differently and not as intuitive. But I let me just finish this and I get like two more slides here. I can then either just show you more screenshots just without the presentation. I can also go to the actual app and screen share the app if that works. But this is a neat little thing that you can do with daytime mode and burden, and it has a little uh, object tracking button. So you could, I don't know if you can see that. So there's like a little box around the bird. So in theory, if there's enough distance for the scope to follow it around, or if it's slow enough, it should be able to track it. I haven't done too much with that, but it's neat to have. And also tried tracking airplanes, so you could see contrails above you. And in the S30, I would click on it to track it, and I would like track it for a few seconds, and then lose track. But it was kind of fun. But
And that produces a raw image. If you zap the red button, you get a raw out of that, and so
uh,
you could take
in
that to
in
Lightroom and do whatever.
Yeah, in daytime mode, it just saves JPEGs, so you can do photo or video with time lapse. And for
Okay.
the video, it does like that MPAG format, MPEG format,
Mhm.
and photo is just regular datum photo. It's
I
so
see a raw symbol on the right-hand side. That's why I'm asking.
yeah, so you could do raw video. I think that's what it's for. And
Okay.
I shoot raw video for moon and solar stacking, and this is where it comes with your AVI raw video, uh, and it works pretty well. And it took me a year to find that button on there, but
Neat.
yep. And this one, I posted about this on Groups.io, but I can also switch over to just some screenshots about this gigapixel mode in Dwarf, which I was floored with. So this was a mosaic of, I've already forgot how many panels by how many panels, but it produced 1,000 megapixel image, so a gigapixel image, 61,000 by 17,000 pixels. Uh, I had to send it to their clouds to process it, and then they give you a link back to download the processed image. But this is one of the things where some people ask, who is it for? But I like the ability to do that, and ability to kind of zoom in on all the different details. And I thought it did pretty good job on stitching the clouds, because I'm pretty sure they were dynamic enough where they were moving, and it stitched the clouds together. And I had another image where it showed a tree, and also the tree was in the wind, and you could see some when you zoom in into that gigapixel detail, you'll see there's some little artifacts, but still, it was a pretty cool image. And I have one last slide here. It's from my earlier presentation when I did my first 5 minutes on the comparison between SeeStar and Dwarf. This was just me attempting to shoot exactly the same object for exactly the same period of time in all four different telescopes. So just to arrange that was a challenge, but that was kind of also compare the field of view of S50 versus Dwarf, for example. But that's like a throwaway slide by now. All right, so I think it kind of up to you guys. Do you want to some minutes of your Sunday back, or do you want to look at more pictures, or do you want to look at the actual live view from my balcony, or do you want to try to find the sun, but it will take a couple minutes to, put a sun filter on and then try to find the sun?
I got to jump off here in about 2 minutes. So, but
Okay.
it's up to, Jeff and Kathleen's still on too. Up to you guys if you want to stay on. I don't have to be on for that.
I'm gonna have to drop off here as well, unfortunately.
All right. Well, yeah, I kind
But
of assumed they were prepared for that as well. So I was kind of gonna play it by ear and who wants to see what. But we can stop it here, and I could use this as a training for my next time I do something like this, or go
yeah,
even more in depth, or maybe I'll learn serial by then and do a little bit more advanced processing.
Well, I will say this: the pace of this, at least for me. I mean, some of these, some of the folks on the line are a lot better at this stuff than I am. But the pace of this worked out very well. So I think you paced it pretty nicely.
All right.
Um,
Thanks. Yeah, I was kind of worried because I have a lot, 1,000 more pictures, and I just didn't know how to arrange them properly. And
gotcha.
I do have a lot more of the dwarf screenshots, so maybe I'll need to do like another one of these, maybe during the Saturday learning sessions about dwarf. And yeah, and another thing it was in the back of my mind for the last couple of months. I actually wanted to create like a little web page as a tutorial or tips and tricks for the SeeStar users. So I'm still kind of in process. I might do it, uh, but
Well, I think
if
if you wanted to, I think if you wanted to just like do a Zoom thing by yourself and then save it and use that as it, and then we could put that up on, whatever. There's a whole bunch of different things we could do.
Right.
We can absolutely do another session of these. I mean,
Yeah.
I only have another couple of months worth on the calendar, and maybe another after that. So, people, if they have content that you want to present, by all means, volunteer and we'll get it on the calendar. I think we have so many smart scope users, far more than, regular astrophotographers, that it's worth having, a good mix of smart scope content in these
Right.
meetings. We can definitely dedicate time for these. So.
Yep, and yeah, I forgot we got Joe Mello coming in as well with his presentation, so we'll see what he
That's
adds
right.
to the mix,
That's
and
right.
hopefully he'll answer all of the questions that every person will see this, and
Yeah.
they'll have a ton more questions that I didn't cover. Maybe it will all go to Joe to cover.
That's right.
I
Yeah,
think,
so for YouTube viewers who weren't here, we can kind of summarize what's coming up for the next couple of meetings, which is in July. We are currently planning a in-person Milky Way shooting session at Woodridge Farm Brewery on July 11th, Saturday, July 11th. Of course, that's weather dependent and may flex to another time depending on that, but the Milky Way should be in great position for photography at that time. And then on July 18th, it's a special session Saturday, a joint meeting with our neighbor to the north, NOVAC, Northern Virginia Astronomy Club. And I'll be presenting on narrowband image processing, specifically using affinity software. So it's a little bit of a tutorial on narrowband, but it's mostly a tutorial on the free Affinity software package and how to do image processing with that for astrophotography. I have increasingly been using Affinity an awful lot in just about every image and find it very, very useful. So I'll give you the hints and tips on that. And then in August, our August meeting, Joe Mello will be picking up on the Smart Scope theme. I can't remember what the title of his talk was basically advanced usage of SeeStars, what he's been doing with SeeStar telescopes as well. So look at the CAS calendar and figure out how to dial into those. But we have a lot more content coming up.
hey, so Jeff, quick one for you. So Novak is on with us in July.
Yep.
Should we be opening this up to Novak and others if they want to just watch our stuff, or is that something that they're already doing, or maybe duplicative?
For the meetings in general?
No, for these follow-on astrophotography meetings.
Oh yeah, I mean, I basically let Novak know about any meeting we have, and we have had Novak people dialing in
Yep.
to these sessions. But feel free to distribute the invitations to, whichever other rack, Rappahannock, Richmond, whoever.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay, good. All right. Hey, Dmytro, you the man. That was great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, this is a really good. Now I actually do have to get one, so.
You can borrow it from the club first.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I keep telling my daughter, I'm going to get one for my grandson. That's the story.
Well,
He's
And when is
7 months
that?
old. He's ready, right? Until he's ready, I'll be using it.
There
So
you
I'll
go.
figure it out for him.
I love it.
good plan.
All
All
right.
right.
All right,
Thanks a
guys.
lot.
Guys,
Thanks. See you.
take care
Bye-bye.
out here.